Michael Zwiefel from Building Better Athletes, and today's topic is max velocity or top end sprinting speed. During top end sprinting speed, very specific positional and mechanical positions need to be hit by our athletes in order to maximize our effectiveness and efficiency during top end speed. Not only does it enhance performance, but it also reduces the risk of injury because it puts our body in a more biomechanically efficient and effective manner to sprint fast while also reducing injury. The fact of the matter is that during top end speed, athletes will feel upwards of 7 times their body weight in muscle forces. They will feel upwards of 5 times their body weight in ground reaction forces. So sprinting is a very good training tool, whether you're a track athlete or not. All athletes should sprint and sprint at top end speed often. No other training stimulus, whether it be plyometrics, whether it be heavy squatting, can stimulate or simulate what happens to the body at max velocity. No plyometric activity can simulate the ground reaction forces or the muscle forces or even the shortness of the ground contact times that sprinting can occur on the body. So the training stresses and adaptations that we get from max velocity sprinting, not only muscle forces, but also the central nervous system adaptations, it is a must for our athletes and something that we need to be doing with all of our athletes, not only to enhance performance, but also reduce injury. In team sports, the most explosive and game-changing or great game-breaking type plays often occur when max velocity is hit. Think about soccer. Think about football. Think about lacrosse. Think about baseball, tracking down a deep fly ball or turning a single to a double, et cetera, or scoring from second on a single. All of these things occur during max velocity, and so these game-type changing plays need to be addressed during training, and optimal mechanics need to be addressed during training. So as we go through this video breakdown today, we'll talk about some key components here. On the video screen, we got Usain Bolt, the fastest man ever to walk the planet. We got him at ground contact. So we'll look at a few of the different phases during sprinting and what we're looking for. At ground contact here, we want to see the major thing, the number one thing that all coaches, if you could take away one thing from this video, is this. At ground contact, so when that foot, so his right leg here, when it first touches the ground, the knees should be even. If not, that unsupported leg, that knee should be in front. This is the number one thing you can look for in your athletes. If that knee is lagging behind, it means that they have excessive backside mechanics. And this can be because of mechanics or thought process during sprinting. It can be because of our posture, whether we're more anterior pelvic tilt, or we got our chest kind of leaning forward rather than being upright. But the number one thing we're going to look for is these knees, what I call the figure 4 position, need to be even at ground contact. The other 2 things we're looking for is just an upright or tall posture. You can see Usain Bolt here. He's at a pretty tall posture. He might be slumped or forward lean just a little bit. But at ground contact, we want to be basically 100% of our height. So if I took you over and stood you next to a wall and measured your height, you should be that same height at ground contact. If you're slumped down or lower, that means you're being inefficient or losing elastic energy at ground contact time because you're losing that stored elastic energy because you're bending or reducing amortization at ground contact. The last thing we want to look for is a stacked head, spine, and hip. As you can see, Usain here is a little bit slightly forward bent. We want to see more of a vertical or stacked position. As we go during flight phase, we want to see a great knee or thigh block. You can see both here. He's at roughly, I'd say, 80 to 85 degrees. That is kind of the standard right there. Athletes will not hit 100 or 90 degree of hip flexion. That's unrealistic, even though a lot of our drills, we work on that, to try to basically overemphasize that. But we want to see a great knee block here, as you can see Usain has here. As we move on towards ground preparation, again, ground preparation, the goal here is to get our body in position to apply forces before ground contact time, not during. This is where the majority of our work is being done. When you punch somebody, you don't hit them and then apply force, right? The work is done in the air. Same with sprinting. Our leg is a hammer. It is hammering the ground. So the work is done here. So the higher the knee block, the more force we can put into the ground. So we want to see basically an extended thigh as we drive to the ground at ground contact time, a vertical shin, and basically you can see here you're saying a neutral or dorsiflexed ankle is emphasized. We don't want to see plantar flexed because, again, that reduces the stored elastic energy and it increases our ground contact time. So again, he's applying huge forces right now. So when he hits the ground, he's like a stiff, rigid body. We bounce off of that rigid body, a vertical shin at ground contact time, trying to have our foot underneath our center of mass as close as possible, not out in front, eliciting braking forces underneath our center of mass or center of gravity on the ball of our foot. So we have a rigid body, a short, stiff ground contact time, and we're trying to get off the ground as quick as possible. As we go here in video, we hear some other athletes slow down. This is my favorite drill to maximize top-end speed mechanics. It's called wickets. The hurdles themselves give feedback, and it basically helps athletes reach better mechanics just from that external type of cue or external environmental cue that we just lay on the ground. So without us having to coach a million different cues or try to change this or coach that, the hurdles themselves are the coaches, and we just let our athletes run through it, and we just tell them to stay tall, bounce off the ground, stay relaxed, and oftentimes, more often than not, athletes will reach these better positions. So you can hear great thigh block, neutral ankle. Okay, he's going to hit on the ball of his foot with that figure 4 position and a nice tall position. Beautiful. So if you can take these key takeaways and apply them to your athletes, whether they're a track athlete or not, these top-end mechanics will make them a more explosive player, will make them a more elastic player, and will help reduce risk of injury when they are exposed to those max velocities.